dude. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What up? Trying to find this article, um, the Schnellenberger article, or whatever, posted up. Did you read that today at all, Shane?
Hold up. Can you hear me?
Shit, I can't. Yeah, I
All
can
right,
hear you
cool.
now.
So yeah, actually, it's on my Twitter feed. I'm trying to fix my my thing. I might have to leave and come back. You may have to co-host me again. So I'm trying to fix my thing. Yeah, I read it. It's on my feed
That's
actually.
cool.
So if you go on there, it's on there several times. I'll just add it to the nest and shit real quick. Okay. So let me leave and come back. Cool.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting article. It touches on a lot of different things and different people too. And he released an article like a couple months ago that was got a lot of buzz as well. So I just thought it was interesting too. He dives into just a lot of the more controversial stuff, but also kind of views it from a skeptical point of view. So I don't know. It's just like a very dynamic article. I think he talks to like Mick West, and then he talks about Doty. And then he talks about alien agreements. And I just posted something like an hour ago about like what people think the alien agreement is, and the post is like kind of blowing up. See if what Cody thinks. Should be good. What's up, Cody? I don't think that worked. Shane, you back?
Yeah, almost, man. Let me just put my other headset in, man. I don't know what I did wrong. I must not be connected to the internet.
Well, Spaces has been kind of
It won't.
glitchy
Yeah, it won't
for
let
the
me.
last
I
like two
usually use my
weeks.
Rodecaster Pro 2, so it lets me put my headset, microphones. It's just a mixer, right? I can't use it right now. So if it sounds shitty, make sure you let me know if like the Bluetooth, because it's just my headset.
No,
Oh wait,
sounds fine.
no, this isn't my headset. Now I want to go to my fucking headset. This is just my fucking.
Talking.
You're just wearing your
I'm
headphones.
fucking asking, talking. There we go. Now we're good. What's up? What would you say now? What's going on?
Oh, I was just talking about that article and all the just he. It's a very dynamic article, and it goes into even like the skeptical side, and then all the way over to like extraterrestrial agreements that we've had, and some of the more controversial topics.
Oh yeah. So some of the important things that it points out that most people might have gleaned over it's using other words, and I think I've got it on my profile. So as soon as we're done talking about it, I'll go ahead and go find it and put it up there. And Joe, UFO Joe had talked about it too. Basically, he talks about kinetic engagements with UAP. That's shoot down, basically is what it's saying. Things like that. And it's also talking about contact with NHI. Most people, contact and agreements, most people think of it as an entirely different thing. But what I could say here is everyone should read Above Black Project Preserve Destiny by Dan Sherman. One of the reasons I say it's important that we kind of look at all these different projects, a lot of these things point to the same thing. These space kids, that's what they're talking about with communication. These programs that were within the NSA, U.S. Air Force, and NASA had the space kids that Gordon Cooper has a quote out there by. But the NSA has some really, what was it called? Oh, I just wrote it down on my Twitter. Gosh, I suck at remembering things. But extremely compartmentalized information, ECI is what it's called, but within the NSA, and that's where these programs are laid out. Now, here's what's cool about these programs. So these programs, they call them gray programs. They're hidden by just putting them within black programs. So what you do is this: you take someone who is you get them a job that's super high security. So you find one of these children, you know that you're going to train them to do this gray project. By gray project, let's say I'm meaning the grays, right? Anything to contact, talk about, or talk to, communicate with these whatever's out there. So their way of hiding it's genius. They have basically dual jobs. It looks like they're doing one, and it is still a high security job that most people in Congress will never even get to know about. Some do. It's got checks and balances. So they hide the Gray Project by him going and doing another job during or while he's even doing it, doing this communication. Now, if you go and look at Simon and Schuster, Deadline has a article that came out talking about Scott Andrews, this wild espionage story. Well, that's what this stuff is. All these children, the space kids. Hell, I don't know for a fact, but I think Jack Savardi is one of them. If you go read,
Oh boy.
go read my fucking thread, bro. Hey, here's the thing: we can not like it, and it's gonna get wild. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm pretty sure what I know, and it's wild, is tip of the iceberg. So get back to it, though. Let me just say this: these programs that these kids have, you have Fuharic, you have Uri Geller, you've got Jack himself. And in that post, they were there. So they've developed ways. And here's the kicker. So who's heard of indigo children?
Yeah.
Give me a little heart, or they call them rainbow children, crystal, something along those lines, right?
Yo, before, your mic is muffled like every like 10 seconds, dude. So I don't know if like you're turning your head or like that's the mic.
Let me fix it. Okay. Better now?
Yeah, but just it's a little bit lower than usual. You had it good when it
Okay, 'cause
was,
I was going to
but
tell
like
you
every
when
10
disclosure was
seconds.
going to happen, but you can't even fucking hear me.
There it is. Yeah. It sounds good now, dude.
It might be my internet too, guys. You got to remember, I'm out in BFE right now, so
Yeah.
I've got some aluminum.
We can hear you. It's just a little muffled. It's not bad, dude.
My internet is basically some internet foil in a dog's ass, and he's on the roof tied to the damn fucking Wi-Fi. So trying to get it to work, but where was I at anyway? Fuck, I forgot.
Well, just with the you said like the kids who were contacted, like Indigo, Safardi,
Okay,
some of these
here's
people
what I
who
need
might
you
have been
guys to
like
think.
messaging.
Suspend all the bullshit you've ever heard, the disbelief. Right now, we're in a UFO freaking space. So to begin with, we know that the world doesn't work like the government says it works. So back to that. Indigo children. There's a whole thing where they're talking about hybridization. John Ramirez has quite a few podcasts he does, and he's talking about it. And I actually today posted a thread about, the Human Genome Project, MITRE Corp. You know who MITRE Corp is a subsidiary of? Jason. So what's going on here? I'm under the impression that we're all hybrids in some form or fashion. I actually ran across a document a while back. I can't find it. Sorry, friends. I'm still looking for it. And it actually spoke, no shit, about the human population being broken down into three or four categories. Those categories had different percentages of different races of alien DNA kind of mixed, and those different categories had an increased, decreased, or null likelihood of abduction. Fast forward more, I don't know how long, right? And I just laughingly bring that shit up to somebody that I trust and that would know and to source something along those lines. And they said, well, yeah, something like that. That's about right. I heard. And I kind of went, what? This was before I started getting into where I'm at right now with all this other stuff. So this hybridization thing, John actually makes a comment, a specific quote, and he talks about all of us being hybrids, but then he says, some of us, I say us like I'm one of them. Apologies. I don't know if I'm fucking one of them. I may be the handicapped one of them. But my point is, some of them have increased intuitive abilities, things like that. So they've been tweaked. Now, let's go over to Dan Sherman's book, Above Black, Project Preserved Destiny. He specifically talks about while being in his mom's womb, the Greys, aliens, tweaked him so that his natural abilities, which again, I just said, everyone's a hybrid, we have these abilities, are more intuitive, those being the communication and things like that. So you take those two things, separate sources, separate places, and my from a source that said he heard that as well. Then you take the Scott Andrews case where he talks about all these same things. You take my tweet about Pooh Herrick and his Star Kids. His Star Kids, Indigo Children, was there a search for kids that were those, or did they already know? In Above Black, Project Preserve Destiny, he speaks of some pretty bad shit. Like part of the stuff that he was communicating, hearing, were abductions. They knew when, where, things like that, right? And he was listening to it. So he was communicating with them. One of the aliens was named Spock. Dan Sherman's the name of the airman. Was named Spock. He just named him that for no reason. In Bones, right, was the second one. He has a couple different conversations with him. This is what blows my mind. I hadn't read this shit ever till a couple friends told me about it a while back, right? Prior to this, and he starts talking about time travel and the way it works and things like that. And it starts hitting on me like, damn, that sounds pretty familiar. He talks about, almost like torsion within the photons, right? And then not able to actually go forward and backwards in time, but leaving portals, coming back, things like that. And some of these different things he talks about, I've also heard elsewhere. So all I know is this. Actually, this shit's kind of lit a fire. I don't know if other people are like me, but when I feel myself and I'm good, I'll wake up 4 or 5 in the morning, and that's the first thing I do. And I've just been going and going and going on this kind of stuff here, but my mind keeps getting blown. And so if we take Scott Andrews, we take Space Kids, Star Kids, Indigo Children, whatever you want to call these. Let's say the Indigo Children are hybrids, the lot of us, right? Whatever you want to call us. And there's a select few that are in the womb tweaked by these grays. And somehow our government knows which ones. And I think that's because when Dan Sherman's talking about the communication and hearing these abductions, maybe that's kind of the stuff they're hearing. So, oh my gosh. Anybody got any questions? I know it's a lot, guys. It's a lot.
So you think that people like this, we'll just say like prime contactees, super experiencers, are identified when they're like kids? So that, like they would have characteristics already
Yes.
that would show that they're in this sort of group?
Yes, they would actually. You can go look up anywhere. Back in the day, this used to be the flower child shit, the crystal child shit. Like, hey, throw a freaking crystal pyramid on their head and they'll be saved, right? That's what this was back in the day. They considered it some foo-foo nonsense. But what ends up happening, and there was China actually started doing some studies on these children, and then UCLA actually did some studies on these children, and God, this so-called star kids, right? I think if I'm remembering right, they had a higher IQ, is what I wanted to say overall. But one of the things I'm remembering too, I just saw today when I was researching something about in their blood. These children also have a marker in their blood. What the hell is it called? Sorry, guys, I'm not a scientist. They have a marker in their blood that kind of marks them. I think green eyes maybe is another one. Anybody in here help me?
So is it something that's like genetically passed down, or is it based off of like their soul or like their
Genetically.
mission
No,
beforehand?
it's
You're saying it's like
genetics.
physical,
Yeah. No,
genetic?
let me put it this way. It's so genetic that when our United States government, the Human Genome Project, with MITRE, Jason behind it, did it. It's so genetic, they saw the genetic material, that junk DNA, that's so called, right? You guys heard that, right? So that's the shit. Now, people are starting to talk about, and a lot of people aren't going to like this, evolution. Oh, God, listen to me. I'm not Alex Jones, guys. Evolution may not exactly work the way we fucking think it works. I know it sounds nuts, but hold up. So there's a kickstart somewhere, and it wasn't a natural kickstart, is what I'm saying. Call it what you want. That's the DNA. That's the hybridization. So all along, it's not like they just came in and started doing this. It's been there, but they started tweaking them. And here's a question that I'm trying to answer. Maybe somebody here can help me. So if, what was the question? If these grays are coming along, tweaking individuals to be influenced, to be able to talk to them, why does the government have their own programs to do it? Why are they doing it on their own as well? Are they getting ready for something? I can't figure it out. I haven't figured that question out yet. Someone asked me that today, and I've been thinking about it. Why? Are they getting ready for something? Maybe Armageddon, apocalypse, shit coming out of the oceans, whatever you want to call it. Name your horror story. But yeah, so I was asked that today, and actually it was a really good question. So if they're already doing this and they're able to pick these people out, the United States government is actually doing their own as well. So you've got Project Preserve Destiny. That dog, not my dog. It's actually my roommate's dog. He just loved me. Come on, dude. Come on. Anyway, Project Preserve Destiny. And you got the Space Kids, right? Different programs. We're training our own, and then you got Graves picking out some other ones. I don't know. Does anybody help me out here? Astral, you there?
Yeah. What was the question? You went out a little bit.
How much do you guys hear?
Here and there, dude. It's a little bit, like I said, dude, it's like muffled every couple of seconds. Sometimes better than others.
You gotta tell me, dude. So people in here everybody here can't hear. They're listening to nothing right now, and it's just like,
no, we can hear you, dude. I'm saying like every 10 seconds it goes out for a couple seconds, like muffled. So we can we can hear you, but sometimes it's harder than others.
It's a fucking nap, yo. Let me see. Hold on. Tell me.
That made it worse. You might just have to jump back in and out. Dorothy, so you jumped up. How's it going?
Oh, hi. I just popped in and I caught the last part of what Shane was saying there about people being tweaked when they're in the womb or, visitations when they're little kids. And I was just at another show where they, we were talking about in the chat how it seems like people from military families are somehow marked. And my theory would be maybe it's because people in the military have access to the very latest technologies available that regular citizens don't necessarily have. And maybe that's why a lot of people who have these sightings come from military backgrounds or come from military families. If there are aliens influencing and messing around with us, people from those families would at least have more up-to-date knowledge or awareness of more modern technologies. And I've heard many people say, well, they're waiting until we get the technologies under control. So if they were going to communicate or set something up where they could communicate, it would make sense to do it with the military families because they had access to the latest technologies that we have available. And questioning on my own experiences in my life, how psychically connected my family seems to be one to another and so forth, and my father all involved in aviation all of his life, and another uncle working at Lockheed Martin in Hollywood, and another relative working in Hollywood at a studio. It's like, okay, there's these weird connections I don't understand because my family's a much older family and I came along really late, but it kind of makes sense that it would happen with those families more than other families, just on account of their exposure to the latest technologies and their openness to the latest thinking on science and so forth. Just a supposition, nothing solid,
No,
but I've
that's a
had my
really
own
interesting
experience,
thought. That's really interesting with the military angle. I've never thought about that.
Well, it just kind of popped into my head too, and I've been listening to these shows for 2 years, so you'd think that I would have gotten a clue about what's going on exactly by now, but no. I'm just like everybody else, scratching in the dark, trying to figure it out.
That is everybody else, yeah.
And one of the things
Shane,
I will say
yeah.
real quick is Dorothy too. This one of the things we need to remember is most of the people who join the military too come from literally you don't have options. A lot of them, right? Another thing about the military is most of the families are either at work or at school. So the kids go to school, and there's after school programs. I was in them. I'm not saying I was in these kind of after school programs, but I do know that parents would not necessarily know testing, these kind of things would go on. Matter of fact, as a latchkey kid, I still remember being in programs till like 6, 7 p.m. sometimes after school for things like that. We did all kinds of stuff in the military, and it was just all encased in a little location, right? In a base. So who freaking knows? I think that because, like Dorothy just pointed out, all these the militaries have all this stuff. Dorothy, do you think they like space kids or they gravitate, or do you think they're kind of pulled into it?
I think most people are pulled into it unaware that anything has happened, except that for me, since my son passed, I've had so many weird paranormal occurrences that I can't um, ignore that something's going on beyond normal reality for me. And I'm not stuck in grief mode all the time either. Uh, my son made me promise before he passed, because he knew his health was sketchy, that I would carry on if he couldn't. And so my reaching out to the ufology community and being online as much as I am is part of that whole effort to try and just keep going on, even though he's not here anymore.
Thank you for sharing that with us too, Dorothy. I appreciate it. And I agree with you that even when people aren't, not just people, like my grandmother, some of the synchronicities, I'll call them synchronicities. Is that what you see yours as? Some of the things you said paranormal, but like
Most definitely.
they're not
And
gone. Only they
well,
could have.
I'm sorry. Go on.
Well, what I mean is, so with my grandmother, it would always feel like almost synchronicities. Now that I know what a synchronicity is, it's almost like only person that would know that, or that doesn't make sense unless it was. Is that the kind of thing you're just talking about? Are you straight talking about a paranormal that was you saw that type of thing? Because that's the stuff I want to know.
Well, I had my own sighting, a kind of a spectacular one back in 1997, but I come from an aviation background. And at the time, I didn't think of it as a UFO experience because I'd been to a lot of Experimental Aircraft Association conventions with my father, who was an aviator all of his life, like I said. And so I'd seen a lot of experimental aircraft in my life. And so I just thought these things flying next to me were some, experimental aircraft guys having some fun out taking a joyride in the middle of the night on a rural road out in the middle of nowhere, and find out the next morning we're on a group rental project for a healing center. My sister and her friends from Harvard Divinity School were starting in a place, an old stagecoach in. And I found out after I got back from my little trip to go get donuts for everybody for the breakfast on Saturday morning that there was it was either an Air Force base or a nuclear silo not too far away from that location. Um, and what's happened lately though is since my son passed, I've had weird things happen, and it would be too lengthy to tell everything that's happened. But the one striking thing that keeps happening is I look up at the clock just randomly and it's 11:11 or it's 2:22 or it's 3:33 or 5:55. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I'm not a big clock watcher. It's just like I'm doing something and I happen to check the time and there it is. It's like in the last 2 days, I've hit 11:11 3 times, twice in one day. And how did that happen? I don't know. I'm like, okay, so do I have some sort of a chip in me that was implanted when I was born or before I was born? That like a locator chip or something that prompts my consciousness to want to look up at this certain time, and then I go into, oh well, that translates into numerology and angel numbers and all this metaphysical kind of stuff, and my family's all connected up that way too. I've got religious people in my family. I've got people in all these different places that are connected with UFOs, in different fields, but when I look at my family, I don't see those connections except from listening to all these different programs that are putting these different fields all together: Hollywood, religion, uh, the business aspects, all that. And I'm starting to rethink, who were these people in my family? Like I said, I came along real late. Nobody ever explains anything to the youngest one, and I was the youngest one for 9 years. So it's just kind of a big puzzle I'm trying to put together. And I realize that some of this could just be my own psyche trying to work out my grief. I don't know. That's the point. I don't know. It's still a big mystery to me.
Hey, it's funny you said that about your own psyche trying to work out your grief, because sometimes I've asked myself, no shit, at my lowest points, my loneliest points, when pandemic was going on and I was seeing and recording the craft, if it was in my head because I was so lonely, if I was making my own, well, people around me were telling me I was fucking schizophrenic and stuff as well. But point being is, I had in my head, I kept asking myself if I was, you know, am I just trying to fix that? Is that what my mind's doing? It doesn't mean it's not, but I have a feeling, Dorothy, if you, when I saw my first, whatever I saw, after that, it's like the veil was lifted. I know that's cliche term, but it's almost like you're in the matrix, but now you can kind of see. You can
It feels
see.
the same. Yeah, same here. Same here.
Okay. So I agree with you. And when the stuff you're seeing, I'm sure you're seeing it, because there are times, and this sounds wild, synchronicities for me, and I think I posted about the other day. You got synchronicities, then you got the cosmic consciousness handing you a puzzle piece saying, now what? And I mean that, like, sometimes with the stuff I see, or synchronicities, or how I find my posts, it feels like, because someone will say something that triggers my brain, and my brain says, "Oh shit, go look at this," and I go and look that up. Like these synchronicities, like, why would you say that? That, exactly those type of
I
things
have the
sometimes.
same thing with books, where I'm puzzling on some, chunking on some thought, and I'll look to a book for guidance, and I'll open up to the exact right passage that I need to read at that moment. And how
There
does
you
that
go, Dorothy.
happen?
I was getting ready to ask you a question that Christopher Wolford asked me a long time ago when I first started talking about my experience. He actually said, when you read books or research, do you have to go through a lot of materials to find what you need, or do you usually just go to it, find what you need? Almost always go to it, find what I need. Almost always for me. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
same here. Same here. And it's so weird. It's like, okay, how come I didn't recognize this for all these years before now? Why did it take my son's passing for my consciousness to open up that way? Perhaps because my son was ill with juvenile diabetes and had so many emergencies. My mind was trained on the 3D world right down to the minute, because a juvenile diabetic can die in 20 minutes from a low blood sugar. So I was constantly on edge all those years about my son's health, taking care of
Hey,
what was
Cambria.
right in front of
Oh,
me.
I was gonna welcome Cambria to the conversation. How's it going?
Hey, Dorothy, I was going to say I'm sorry for your loss and thank you for sharing. But I had a question for Shane. He was talking about the genetics. And so he said something about green eyes, and I didn't catch it and what that meant, because my daughter has green eyes and some people in my family, so I was wanting to hear that. And then the next thing I had a question about, you said something about the genetics, where the Greys would take, mess with your genetics, indigo children or whatever. Did you see where it said anything about this being a positive or negative experience, or was that for you? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you
And
mean.
then the next thing, I don't know if Fringe might not want to speak today. That's fine. But eventually, I'd like to hear what she has to say about what you were saying with the genetics earlier, because I really value her opinion and thoughts, and she's been through so much. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Question one, green eyes. So I do believe if you go look up indigo children and go look at common traits of indigo children, I do that. I want to say that's fucking one. That's freaking one of them. Green eyes. No, I'm not saying all green eye children are one of them, but there's that one. What was your second question, Cambria? I'll try to find the post and put the links in here. I've
Like,
been
did you feel like how they were altering our DNA was like a positive or a negative? Like, is this for their own gain, or is this for us just to help
well,
us, or is this just to get us to a certain point so they can manipulate us and use us because of our DNA?
so from what I understand, okay, there's more than one NHI here. We all know this. I'm sure we know that. You've got the oh crap. I want to say I want to break them down in the Y's. I'm gonna mess it up, so I don't want to break it down right now. So you got multiple groups of NHIs here. They are. I don't know how to really answer this because I don't. I'm not. I mean, we can all think from what the humans, us and Dan and all of us think, but from what I gather, the ones that are doing this that we communicate with, but I think we communicate with multiple groups. There aren't always good ones. So I'm still new to this, guys. I think some of it's good. I think, like I said, evolution got a kickstart. The way I've seen the groups broke down was like the names may be wrong, but something like one like parental something, one wise something like, and they keep hands off this group, and this group will you can ask them questions, right? And so it all just depends. I don't know who all's doing the hybridization because one of the documents I saw, Cambria, and I still can't find it. I know it's out there because that's the one I asked about. It literally said percentages, different percentages of different races, alien races. So, like, let's say you take you and I, maybe I'm 30% of this one, 20% of this one. You may be 20%. I didn't add up to 100 of four different other ones, right? So I do not know this yet. All I know is this, that the likelihood of abduction on this paper was increased, decreased, and zero, depending on who you're related to. And I took that as if you're related to the big badass mofos, you weren't getting screwed with. And if you had the blood of this group, you're the nerd you're getting screwed with. And then you had the blood of this group, it was kind of a null type thing. So I've got to find that. And I know I saw it. And like I said, I had asked an individual and they had heard the same type of thing. And that brings me to the hybridization that I hadn't even made it to yet. Project Preserve Destiny, you got the Space Kids with it, NASA and USAF. So two different programs, I do believe. I'm still working on that shit. So did I answer your questions, Cambria? I'm sorry. And hybrids rule.
Humans drool. Fringe, what's up?
At first, wait, I wanted to say at first, Cambria, it sounded like you asked me when they were hybriding me what it felt like. And I was like, wait, I don't even know if I'm a hybrid yet. Are you giving me a clue?
You're definitely a hybrid, bro.
Yeah, Shane's definitely a hybrid. I was just gonna back up Shane. Shane, I know you got that paper somewhere. I'm waiting to see it. I'd love to see that paper. I mean, we know that the research shows that it's definitely genetics and bloodlines. That's what they care about. On the Project Destiny, it was the military doing the abductions and doing the changes in utero to make the children who were born out of that pregnancy to be more able to communicate with the aliens. And they knew a certain percentage of those children, because they were military families, and knew a certain percentage of those children would return back to the military and have a certain intelligence and have a certain capability of communicating. So And, you know, it does also have to do with the soul, because the soul has to match genetically to the body. So you can't have a mismatch there. I don't understand the science or the physics behind it, but that's definitely a thing too. And so I like to say, you know, they're interested in karma, bloodlines, and genetics, and that's what they care about. And if you've been, you know, in my case, I have it on both sides of my family, being abducted and seeing the shadow people and dealing with entities and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely, you know, it definitely has something to do with it. I don't know if that helps Cambria with her question or not.
I want to say that for families from my era, like post World War II, just post World War II, we were trained in the keep your lip shut technique. So if you had an experience, you wouldn't talk about it. You wouldn't even admit that you had it. So I guess that's part of why I feel like it's still such a big mystery to me, because so many weird things have happened throughout my life and to myself, my sisters. And I know my son was a psychic, because when he was 7, he predicted uh, a theft that actually happened. I was new back in town, just had finished my work out in California for my master's in music education, and just had a new job and didn't have a bank account yet. So I was going to go to a check cashing place to cash this check so we could get some groceries into the house. And my son was going, Mom, I got such a weird feeling about this. I don't want you to go. I don't want to go. And I said, well, honey, we have to get some milk and bread and, you know, maybe some tuna or something in the house. And the only way to do that is to get this check cashed. At that time, that was the only place you could do such a thing. And sure enough, we went to the check cashing place. And because of my son's warning, I put my cash into my pocket, pretending to put it into my purse. And as soon as I got out the door, I was strong arm mugged, socked right in the nose. And this guy came out of nowhere and clocked me in the nose, and I was down on the ground. So, you know, it's weird things like that that happen, and they don't happen all the time. For me, it's like, okay, I never questioned if my son had a hinky feeling about something. I never questioned it again. I just go, okay, I believe you, you know, and I'd follow whatever that was for what I would do or not do in a certain situation. Didn't come up that same way ever again, but that one time was enough for me to know that my son was psychic.
RH blood type is markers. In the eyes, chromacity. Hold up, I gotta look at that shit again. Chromacity and retinal patterns. That's what you're looking for.
What are the retinal patterns?
I imagine it's the way. So you know the way the government uses instead of fingerprint machines, they can use eye scanners. It's because retinal patterns are specific to a person. So I imagine if you alien like Astral, you got some freaky eyes. That's why he's got glasses in his photo.
And then Shane, you know, the aliens, they know us before we even incarnate here. And so they know we're coming. And so, I mean, it takes the military, what? Some kids are taken by the military even as infants. So in the military, it takes them usually between the ages of 3 to 11 years old for the military to catch on to whatever the aliens are doing. So there's that whole side of it too.
Yeah, she ain't lying either. What? John and his mustache are up in here. There, he's another Puharic junkie. Matter of fact, he was actually trying to get an interview with Ronnie P the other day. He was telling me see if I could set that up, but shit, he won't accept my LinkedIn, so I don't know what to do with that shit.
And talking about genetics, I mean, one thing I for sure have noticed is the Native American connection. And then I have some Native American, Irish, and then Basque too. And Basque is supposed to be some ancient bloodline or something. So the genetics play a huge, huge part.
That's interesting. I found out through a DNA genetics test that I'm related to like 13 disparate places on the earth, including Peru. So those Peruvian mummies are pretty interesting to me.
Hey guys, just to give you a heads up, Astral's having some connection issues, so if Paul goes to hell, unfollow him. No, I'm messing with you. It's his fault, just letting you guys know. But I was gonna say that, yeah, for me, you couldn't tell it, but with my redneck ass, but actually, my family came over on a Mayflower. I'm related to President Taft somewhere down the line, and then it went to shit. I became a freak somewhere. I don't know what happened there, man. Do not know what happened. I'm the black sheep of the Mayflower, is what it is. That's probably what happened. And I say that because someone actually, sorry, Ralph, I didn't mean to step on you. Someone actually told me one time, and it's funny because my grandparents told me a long time ago that Priscilla Mullins and John Alden, that's my relation somewhere down the line, right? Fast forward to all of this, and someone was talking about genetics of all of this, and they said you should have your, you know, blood work done, right? And they started talking about bloodlines. And one of the bloodlines was coming over on the Mayflower group of individuals. And I said, well, what are the fucking odds of that, right? So, yep, guys, you're right. Your co-host is a fire starter. I got all kinds of abilities. Send me a tip and I'll show them to you.
Olvet, I'm not sure if you've heard that someone told me the other day, I don't know if this is true. And actually, I don't know how far back these bloodlines go. For all I know, we do just come from two people, but that they're looking for the bloodlines of Noah and the Magdalene bloodline is what they're looking for. And that's what they follow century after century after century.
I've heard that before too, actually. And I've actually heard that the bad guys are looking for that bloodline as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Have you
it's
ever
a
heard
chess
that?
game between the good guys and the bad guys. And, people don't like to hear this. I know they have a different view of the Old Testament, but to me, the Old Testament is it's just a seed war. The seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman, and they're just trying to kill each other the entire time.
I actually just read somewhere that one of these contacting was it, man, I don't remember if it was above black. Basically, that they were talking about, they started, all the religions are starting because of them.
Yeah, totally.
I
They're
talk about that in
infighting. It's that's exactly what it is. That's what all of it is. It's all the same story too. If you go back to all of these religions and all the cultures, we all tell the same story over and over and over, thousands and thousands of years. It's the same story.
Even the Bible is a retelling of the older stories.
dude. Hey, check this out. Never mind. Synchronicity. All I'm going to say is you were talking about the bloodlines, right? And someone had just messaged me about something, and that name was in there, and I was like, "What the shit?" That's crazy.
Yo, I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Anybody hear Astral?
I can hear
Yep.
Astral. Yep.
All right, cool.
I can't.
I'm going to hop out of the speaker's position and listen to you laying down because I'm kind of tired. I did a lot of physical work today. Thanks for
Thanks
the
for talking.
opportunity, though, to come up and speak about things.
Thank you, Dorothy. And guys, if you guys didn't hear me earlier, wish I didn't say this earlier. First, retweet the space. We've got bad about that. Follow all your speakers, your co-hosts, the people in this room, whether you're probably some of your brightest weirdos around about this dark ass bullshit. But just give it a retweet. That's all we ask. Ain't nobody asking for any money except for me. You can throw some tips in my shit up there. Ain't nobody else asking for money. But I'll tell you that we do this a lot. It's kind of a safe space. We don't let it go off topic. So just retweet. Don't give me a tip. I was just fucking around with that. But at least retweet. Earlier, if I was cutting out, we were trying to talk about, and I put them in the thread, so they're in there now. John Ramirez's conversation about hybridization. And he's specifically talking about some being tweaked more. And so I'm asking the question, is that what the United States government, being the NSA for Project Preserve Destiny, United States Air Force, and NASA for the space kids, is that what they're looking for? These ultra indigo children? And who in here is an indigo child? Give a thumbs up. Vinny, you an indigo child?
But what would they be looking for, though?
So
Like if you didn't know who they were and you were just entering the program and they were like, this is the characteristics of what we're looking for. what would be that answer?
I think they know, don't they, Fringe? They know which ones are that. Like, there's agreements,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think they'd know. I think some people I think sometimes they just know. But if you hear Bridget and some of these kids who were taken as young children, they're just getting tested. And so you kind of get starting out getting tested, you get tested for psi abilities, you get tested just for pure intellect and IQ. And then these kids, they just kind of get weeded out as the program goes, but they get them really young. And a lot of times there is, a lot of military involvement there too. I don't have any memories of that as a child, so I can't tell you for sure, but I know I've heard Bridget talk about it in that way.
Ask yourselves this before we get over to, I can't say your name, Ralph. You're going to let you go here in a second, but you guys don't remember being in school and doing all kinds of testing to see if you can make gifted programs? You don't remember being on bases and having programs that were for gifted and things like that? That's how they hide these things.
Yeah,
They
and that
they
you're right.
they test for it, and there was actually a movement, a big, I don't know what they called it. What they were trying to get, what was it called in the 80s? A group of I don't know what the fuck was it called. Where they literally, the government was trying to find a group of, because China was doing it, and Russia or UCLA came out with some papers saying these kids, yes, they do have some, I guess higher IQs and shit. So there was a whole push by the government for a minute. So I think testing for one, and with like Project Preserve Destiny, I think they knew like it was so they were being tweaked by the speakers by the group of grays more so they could be communicators, and then so the military knew. Is that what am I getting that
Yeah,
right?
I think that
So they knew to
I think
find
in
it.
Destiny, the military was actually involved in the abductions with the ETs and doing the in utero stuff, so they would know in advance. And when I say I don't have any memories as a child, I mean my labs, because my first alien experience was at 3.5. But I don't remember doing any of these testings or anything that Bridget has done. But a lot of the kids do remember that stuff. Is Ralph trying to talk here?
Go ahead, Ralph, real quick, and I'll tell you the name of the testing.
Right on. Thank you. I just want to say regarding hybridization and like the agreement. Whenever I had encounters with the phenomenon, um, I would like think of like a person, like a name. Like for example, like when I was in like second or third grade, like we were going back to school, like school was about to start, and I was, in third grade, like there was a lot of rap going on, like Dr. Dre when I was a kid. So I was thinking about marijuana and like how cool marijuana would feel. I didn't try it until like a lot later, but that's another story. Um, so and I was like, no, nothing. I'm thinking to myself, like nothing can feel better than like a crisp, like April April morning, right? So don't stop me if you know this, but anyway, so like we go to school and like the prettiest girl is there, and her name is like April Crispine, right? And I'm thinking, I'm like, oh shit, something is better than a crisp April morning, and it's April Crispine. It's a girl, right? So of course, like this happened to me like with people in my life, that I think were planted there. Like with about 10 different, well, I know we're planted there because it's happened with like military personnel subsequently. But they just like plant people like in my life and probably in everybody's all of your lives that are like part of your like inner self, like and they're just like a character in your story. And that's what my phenomenon has been like, somewhat.
Dang, that's so like kind of like a simulation almost, where not like NPCs, but they kind of guide people towards your experiencing them. But you also talked about their different aspects of like your subconscious as well. It's a pretty wild idea, dude.
Yeah, it's like straight up instantaneous. It was like the same day with April, and like like other people, like school semester would start, but I'd be like, oh shit, I just thought of that person. You know what I mean? And yeah, with my best friend growing up, um, and various other people, they just like planted them in there, and like, man, I don't know if they guide them. I don't know if they were straight up part of any programs, But like, I never hit it off with April or Dolores or anybody. But that's another story too. But yeah, I mean, it's always been kind of cool for me, except recently, which is unfortunate. But I'm confident things will get better.
No, thanks for sharing. And it reminds me too of just like synchronicities in general, like how they're set up. Is it more of an outside force that's putting it together, or are you kind of manifesting it happen? But thanks for sharing, man. Trip, what's up?
Not much. I two things. One, as far as synchronicity goes, I think it absolutely happens, but I think a lot of times our subconscious is more powerful than we realize. Meaning, we could check a clock 1,000 times a day without realizing it, but when we see a specific set of numbers that we have inherently trained ourselves to focus on, we are more likely to recall that set of numbers rather than any other set of numbers we previously viewed. So, an example, if you check the clock at 11:15, you don't think much about it. You check the clock at 12:13, you don't think much about it. You check the clock at 11:11, and all of a sudden it registers in our brains that that is a significant number. The numbers have meanings. Therefore, we lodge that in our subconscious, and I think we tend to make more out of it than what it actually is. The second thing I wanted to say was I find the timing of all of this disclosure and all of this, I don't know, government coming forward with different videos, different hypothesis on what's going on. We've got the balloons, we've got all these different things going on. I just find the timing very suspect, considering our subconscious and our frontal cortex has been primed for the last 20 years for such an event to occur. I mean, think about all the movies we've watched over the last 20 years when it involves space travel. Think about the movies in the last 3 to 4 years about the multiverse and transitioning a multiverse. They're putting things in our psyche and our subconscious that weren't here previously. So once we understand these concepts, we obviously see them more frequently because we now have a comprehension from their perspective of what they are, if that makes any sense.
Totally.
Yeah, you just hit on the synchronicity from what we were talking about earlier with Dorothy. She was talking. I don't know if you. I don't think you were in the space, but it was about that. Just at the 11:11 time, and
No,
how.
I was. That's why I brought it up
Oh,
because I
okay,
think,
yeah,
yeah, because I think a lot of times I think that, again, when we learn different data sets, right? We all of a sudden our subconscious focus will inherently focus on that data set. So something that was innocuous previously all of a sudden brings up the back of our mind to say, wait a second, there's something relevant to the time I'm looking at now, which
right.
causes us to.
It's like a certain specific color car, and then you start noticing a red car all the time, stuff like that.
Exactly, exactly.
What was the second thing you touched on?
The second thing was my issue with the timing of all of this disclosure.
Like, what do you think that why is it peculiar, or do you think it's distracting from something, or what? Why do you think that it's coming out recently? A lot of the stuff.
well, I think I'm not going to begin to. Obviously, everything I'm saying is speculation. I have no
Sure.
evidence to back anything I say up. But I find it odd that movies, videos, TV shows have ramped up this type of thing over the last 20 years. And it's got the concepts have expanded drastically and gotten more and more defined over time. Like look at all even the kids movies now. Look at the cartoon Spider-Man movie is all about the multiverse. Then all of a sudden the military is coming out with ships that are traveling at erratic speeds, the things that fly in parallel that make no sense. Well, people have been talking about this forever. So my question is, why now? Why now are you disclosing information you've had access to for 100 years? So I find the timing suspect. I find all of the propaganda that's being pushed on us on a regular basis through TV, media, movies, music. I just find the timing very odd that is coming to a precipice at this point. And I believe, personal speculation is it's to distract from something else, something we're not supposed to be paying attention to, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it's coming out because of the resources we have now. Like, like you can't smoke weed. Like you can't, like I can't smoke weed like without like like brushing my teeth. You know what I mean? I can't imagine other people like, but it's been around for like thousands and thousands of years. Like, so imagine taking it to like higher drugs. Like you can't smoke meth like unless you have like a screen in front of you to watch porn for like 24 hours. You know what I mean? Like you can't survive meth. You can't survive
This
you
analogy is
can't,
getting weird.
you can't,
Well, first
you
off,
can't
I've survived meth, and second, that is getting a little weird. 23
yeah,
hours
yeah.
is my max on the porn. 23. Let's move the
Yeah.
fuck on from that.
Okay, anyway, but it's resources, right? Like you can't just like smoke weed. Like even until like the 1400s, like coffee was banned by Islam. But now that we have like all this technology at our fingertips, we can, you know, more so co-evolve with the fauna, with the plant life, with marijuana, and sad to say, like ephedra. Not that I can't do like advanced calculus on ephedra, but like nobody can do advanced calculus anyway. You know what I mean? So so like like we've co-evolved with marijuana. Now it's going into, and even that's hard, right? Now it's going into like the harder stimulants that you can't you like there was you like people, if you smoke meth, dude, like I know you have, Shane, so that's cool, but like you're just in a completely different like reality. Like it's just not even, it's like pure sex and only sex, and it's just not even cool. It's not even like cool. But like if you can get over like the first 2 days and sleep for 5 hours a day for like the next like 3 or 4 until you score some more, then it's like it's kind of like it's a different like
Hey,
work
Ralph.
output.
Hey, man. Look,
Yeah.
am I high? What the fuck are we talking about, buddy?
Sorry, I know I took it to another.
Yeah, we got to stick with UFOs. Look, yeah, let's go back to UFOs. I'm trying to figure out, like, wait, did I miss the UFO? Where are we getting to? So let's stick to that, because who knows? We could be triggering some people
So,
in here that are former addicts and stuff.
I
So
yeah,
think
yeah,
one of
sure,
the
sure.
dude, one of the things that I think about with why disclosure now, I feel like a lot of the stigma that's been there the past 70 years and the media control that's been there, it's opened up, and so people are now able to do research on their own instead of sitting by the TV and waiting for people. There's still a lot of people like sitting and waiting for the information to come, but there's more active researchers. There's more people that are genuinely curious about what's going on, and then when they look into what's going on, there's a lot of legitimacy to it. And I think that there's been just as many people trying to come out with the information as before, but now there's actually legislation that's being put in place that's allowing whistleblowers to come out into the public where they're not being killed and just ridiculed off and laughed
well,
off.
actually, Astro has a point. Let me just piggyback on that. That the speed of which information gets out, whistleblowers can come out. You can put the information out to protect yourselves, right? Astral mentioned all this stuff that's happened. A lot of it's fake as shit, though. Arrow stuff like that. It's all bullshit. So, right? They just kind of playing the game. Project Blue Book, Grudge, Sign. They need you to think they're doing it. They're going to use the buzzwords, and they're going to kind of try to keep shit hidden. Doesn't mean all people, Congress, and all them are on, but he's right. We have pushed the ball for a lot further. I'm still thinking about the hybridization with weed that I think you were hinting at. I'm like, that's still stuck in my head, man. I don't know how we got there, but thank you for
For
bringing
sure.
that to my attention, man.
Like
Well, I find it interesting that we're on the precipice of a basically what amounts to a global financial reset, and they typically occur every 50 to 60 years. We're a little overdue since the last one occurred, so that's where when I say I find the timing suspect, I find the timing suspect that we're on the cusp of literally a global transition from money is the way we know it to transitioning to something new, whether it be digital assets, whether it be a gold-backed currency. I don't have the answers to that, but we're on the precipice of a substantial change globally in our economic system and our financial system. So I just find it interesting that while this transition is occurring, at the same time, the government decides to acknowledge UFOs and all types of aerial phenomena that they had no interest in 50 years ago when it was obviously present at that time. So I just, again, find the timing suspect.
I would even say they're not even doing a good job if they were doing that. If they were distracting, like there's still majority of the people who read it are like, yeah, aliens are real, but shit, I got other shit going on in my life. Like I got to go to work, I got to pay bills. Like the effort that they're putting in isn't even like moving the needle in some there's no mainstream media picking this up. I feel like if they really wanted to distract it, you'd hear about this shit like over the top, like every day somehow this would be getting your attention to be like, pay attention to the aliens, like you got to do that, but you got to like really dig into this and
Well,
like, you know.
But wait, just wait till media and everybody else starts hearing about the time traveling super spies and shit, man. Ain't nobody ready for all this bull crazy ass shit that's out there and coming. Like I've talked about Project Pegasus and Project Superman, all these MK Ultra attempts at time travel. I'm telling you, it's going to sound like a book. Like, so, matter of fact, I talk about how my life sounds like if I would tell somebody the story of my experience on my life, and they'd say, "No, that's bullshit. That's all made up." This is even crazier. Some of the stuff that I read, no, all I can say is this: UFOs, consciousness, yeah, those are key. That's cool and all. That's nothing. Time travel, that's probably nothing either. The stuff I know, MK Ultra, that's probably nothing either. It's gonna get to the point we're gonna start looking at each other, us UFO people, and be like, "What? Are you are you serious?" And I'm telling you, it's getting there. I mean, I just posted shit about John Ramirez, the hybridization, the government knowing about it, and what they possibly use them for. Think about that. That's a damn fictional book if I've ever heard it, but it's not.
well, I love the concept of time travel because if time travel is plausible, that means that we're omnipresent, meaning we never die, meaning that if you could travel back to a certain point in time and realize somebody's existence in that point in time, did that person in fact ever die? So I think there's a lot of uh, philosophy. I'm going to butcher that, but there's a lot of prospects that occur when you talk about time travel, and it also questions into our existence. If we're omnipresent in any time, do we in fact ever die, or are we just in fact reliving a conscious experience over and over and over in a specific time zone or a specific frame of time where we always exist in that moment? Otherwise, time travel theoretically would not be plausible.
And who invented
Cambria,
time travel?
Jack Staffardi.
Tesla.
No.
Oh, you know he did.
According to Jack Safardi, he probably
He
did.
did. You know he
Hey,
did. He already submitted the equation. He brags about it all the time.
hey, matter of fact, hey, look, he got it from Spectra. Look, I actually just talked about the note that I just posted shit before we get over to Cambria. I'm sorry you've been waiting. So, some of these children get gifts. Those gifts are gifts of knowledge, right? If you go look at a post that Jack actually made, he talks about um, Oppenheimer and his project Flying Carpet, and he's the thief. Oh, damn it. He's the thief of Baghdad. What that is a reference to, the thief of Baghdad gets magical gifts from a genie. The genie being the alien. Well, guess what? I've talked to three people. Well, Jack, and I've had two sources talk about similar gifts of knowledge. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe he did time travel. I don't know, bro.
But let's for a second say that aliens are real, time travel is real, it's plausible. Well, then how could we ever possibly know that any outcome presented to us is the natural outcome? Meaning that there's no possible way to ever define your future if your past is able to be manipulated. So if we succumb to that logic, what is the point of any of it? Because it's going to be eradicated the minute you come on concrete evidence.
Well, the point of that is you're going to have a split, and you're also going to have what's that called? The Mandela effect. That's what I'm told. Don't shoot the messenger. Look, the thing we need to think is this non local duality, like on Project Preserve Black, or no, Project Preserve Destiny, Dan Sherman talks to one of the Greys, and the Grey actually tells them that we're from the same thing. You got two types of creations, intelligent, non intelligent. We're basically the same thing. Non local duality would would basically mean that we're all different expressions of the same thing, right? So who's to say there's not a bazillion of us splitting off every time one of these type of things happen? That's what I'm trying to explain to you. I know it doesn't sound rational, doesn't meet our physics, but my point is we got to stop because those aren't working and those aren't right because there's things that don't make any sense that are happening, have happened, and will continue to happen. Scientists in our government even know. There's scientists that know the very matter of fact, astrology, you've all been told that's bullshit. But did you know that there is actual science that's been done that when with the whole Layla, that there's actually X portals. NASA knows about these portals of energy all around the earth. So this is shit that they're gonna keep secret, just like the time travel, right? It's different. It's not like in the movies. Think about it this way: time's always happening, all of it, all at once, and it's a matter of us being 3D. It's perspective. We flow one direction. They can't even go back and forward in time, but anyone can find a way to hack, step out of time, this flow, this dimension, and come back in at a different point. It's just about science. That's all that is. So even if our science says we can't go backwards in time, yeah, we just got to find a way out and around. And that's been found, is what I'm telling you. And it's different than what most people think.
Damn, dude, you just broke down fucking time travel, right?
Yeah, well,
Cambria, sorry. I'm gonna take a minute to think about that, Shane. Cambria, what's up?
I just posted some stuff about synchronicities in there that the Anomalous Library posted the other day when we were talking about it. So there are just some research papers on synchronicities and things, and they're pretty interesting. So that's all I wanted to say for now.
thank you very much, Cameron. And think about this. I had mentioned portals and things before we get to the next hand. How many of these projects or MK Ultra experience or things or that you've heard, there's been a story they talk about portals, opening up some kind of a portal, dimensions, things like that. Now, that's one way to time travel. Hell, who's Andrew? Oh, who'd heard of Andrew? Oh, I'm gonna mess his name up. He talks about being a part of Project Pegasus. I'm not saying he was or he wasn't, but talks about the time travel and the portals. And again, I'm no scientist. I'm just saying all we really need is a way out of this flow of time, which would be dimensional, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, and then back into whatever point we want. But anyone that's in a higher dimension can do that depending on which dimension up they are. It's a whole thing in its own. So
Basiago.
what's up?
Basiago, right? Andrew Basiago?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you very fucking much. Lawyer Andrew Basiago. I was gonna butcher that name. Actually talks about it. And what's wild is this: I'd never heard that fucking name, and ever. And a source was talking about the project, and I started researching it. Still never heard about the name. And one day I'm down at a alien. No, I'm in Palm Springs. The one in Palm Springs is that the fuck is that one called? An alien festival in Palm Springs. And a guy walks up to me and hands me a flyer, and it's got a bunch of pictures on it for a place I've never even heard of that's having an event. And there's a picture of Andrew on it, and it says Project Pegasus on it. I said, "What the fuck? Who is this guy?" And then I see an interview. Actually, you can go right now, Logan, and find one of his interviews. He's doing an interview from where I'm at right now, Oak Harbor. So, yeah, thank you for saving me with that. He himself talks about the portals, the time travel. He even says there's a photo that exists of him at the Gettysburg Address. And he shows that photo. You can go find that shit. So we'll get to the next hand. Thanks, Logan.
Yeah, I have 2 points. I want to talk first about real quick about time travel, my thoughts on it, and then the disclosure. So when it comes to time travel, I don't necessarily agree that these entities have like a omni understanding of what's happening in the future. And I'll just give just a couple different instances. So when Travis Walton was abducted, he woke up and he knocked 3 of the aliens over. And I would think like if they knew that was going to happen, then well, they should have predicted that.
Right.
Secondly, secondly, there was There's a really cool YouTube channel I suggest watching. There's like tons of different things on it. I sent to friends today. It's called Bedtime Stories. On one of them, there was like when we were invading Vietnam, I guess there was like tons of things going on there, including Bigfoots. One of them was blown up by a mine. So yeah, again, if these things were omnipresent, understood everything about time, well, then they should have known that. So that's my thought on that. And then secondly, when it comes to disclosure and how long that's happened and everything that happened with that, I'll just say a list of names that I wrote down to start looking at that. First, Robert Bigelow bought the ranch, Skinwalker. Second, Jay Stratton worked on the ranch, came up with the UAP term, went over to Harry Reid, told Harry Reid about his accounters. Harry Reid funded everything that's happening. Then you had Lou Elizondo. Obviously, everyone knows about that. Leslie Keane wrote the article 2017 that led to David Grush. And from that, Chuck Schumer, that led to the amendment that hopefully we're going to have today. End of scene.
Thank you. And I will say this, I should have corrected myself with this. They're not psychically seeing the future. If you're a dimension up, you can see everything below you, right? So if you're out of this time, which I just kind of mentioned the portal, something along those lines, what I'm saying is this: when they're in their crafts, consider that being in that bubble, that warp drive. So that craft is essentially a time machine, even though it's not a time machine because of what it does. So they can literally see, let me put it this way. Uh, there's a proof of it. Fravor says the tic tac goes where before he gets there, and it knows the cat point. It's not because it some hack and none of that type of shit, right? It's just a matter of the way we see time travel, the way it dense gravity or the gravitational drive, the warp drive, the bubble, because that bubble is actually what protects them. It's only that bubble, we'll call it inertial cancellation, that allows them to not squish and shit like that. It's just it'll expand grab or I say space time in front and pull it in behind it to decrease, increase, blah blah, back and forth. Right? I'm a great science
Well,
explainer.
maybe that's like when they become physical and they do these, like you were saying, these type of abductions, like they go from the non-physical, which is totally connected to the a deeper consciousness where you can access the information from the future, but then they're taking the risk of becoming physical, and then they're like, well, we're going to lose these sort of like superpowers, quote unquote, if we do physical and we're doing this stuff and we're interacting with
Let
humans
me
on
ask you
their
this:
level.
would that change? Would this change anything for what we're talking about? And we are. If there was a boss that was sitting, let's say at a base, a dimension or two up, watching everything, and he had his little worker grays doing everything down here, wouldn't that be why, how,
Like some
so
Thanos
Well,
shit.
it would change the entire. Well, it would change the entire conversation because
yeah,
it would make disclosure impossible. How
but it
could you
wouldn't make it
possibly have?
impossible.
Well, how could you possibly have disclosure if you have an almighty being seeing every action that occurs? All they would simply have to do is go to the time frame in which disclosure occurs and eradicate it. I mean, so by
How
the
do you
very
know they
nature
don't want
of
disclosure? How do you know they're not the ones pulling us to disclosure? See,
So,
you're
so I wanted
assuming
to,
that they're trying to stop it. That's our
yeah.
government that's
But if they
stopping it.
wanted to expedite disclosure and they're an almighty being at an omnipotent level, couldn't they just administer disclosure on their own by
Well, they're not
pulling
magic.
up and
They're not
dropping
magic.
down and
They're
saying, "Hey,
interdimensional.
we're here"?
Now listen, they're not magic. They're interdimensional. They still have to apply when they come here by whatever our space-time rules are, right? On top of that, they're limited on what they can do from that dimension. So they got to rely on these grays. And we don't know if they're good, bad, or other. We're assuming that they're either good or they're bad. Maybe they're scientists. Maybe they don't give a shit. Some are good and bad. But my point being is this: they actually name some of these different species. Like you got the wise ones, you got the caretakers, for all this shit. I get the uncomfortableness with it. And let me put it this way: a lot of the stories and a lot of what we've been talking about tonight is that is
So
I don't
literally
think it's uncomfortable. I think that we take logical jumps that, if we reverse our logic, don't quite add up. And that goes back to my point: is why now? Why at this juncture in time would we be allowed to, quote unquote, discover the truth?
again, your logic doesn't make any sense. You're assuming the humans want
Could I jump
disclosure.
in?
They don't. Now, what you got to pull back from is this. Perhaps it's nothing. It's just there. It's our consciousness, the way we're reacting on it. It could be a billion different things, but we're applying our human emotions and everything that, dude, I'm telling you this. I wouldn't try to think for them. They're not trying to speed it up, trying to decrease it. There could be a billion different things, but applying any logic to whatever this is, it's not going to work, bro. I'm literally talking about kids who communicate with aliens.
Well, it's
Well,
not about it. If you go back to Project MK Ultra, the entire point of the project was mass hysteria and mass hallucination.
No,
It
that
was
wasn't.
getting,
You
yeah,
should
it was.
probably go
It was
back and read up and come back to these rooms. This is what we do all the time. MK
well,
Ultra started out as a specific type, right? It's interrogation techniques. It actually morphed off into Alpha, Beta, Charlie, Delta, and those are all different programs. Those branched off in about 50,000 different others.
the
Some of
whole
those
point was if
programs
they could
included,
take
hold on, some of
individuals.
those programs included taking children, right? And because they found out trauma actually enhances abilities in some of these kids, they started traumatizing them using tables sometimes where they spin them, water, all these techniques. They actually graduated from that, moved to Pooh Herrick and his fucking hurts, right? And that's a whole thing right there on its own.
But the entire
So
point of the
we should,
project was, could you take a regular human being and manipulate their thoughts and their processes in order to carry out specific actions with no other information other than the basis of the timeline
yes,
they
they can.
understood?
Timothy
And
McVeigh.
that was the whole point, was trauma-based mind control, and they wanted that to work on a mass scale. That was the whole point of the project from day one, is could they get it to work on a massive scale? So I don't think I'm wrong
You're
in
wrong.
saying that.
You're wrong because my point is this. You're right in the fact that it was supposed to be about maybe the masses. You can look at the Gwyn Towers, and in the end, Trip, hell, I guess you take the conspiracy theories about all the different towers that are up, pulsing these hertz, the Tesla stuff. But MK Ultra may have been about that, but a lot of programs start about that. That's not what the program was.
But
MK
I
Ultra was,
wasn't trying to argue with you, and I apologize if it came off
dude, you're
that
not
way.
arguing with me, Trip. If I'm sounding loud, it's just because I'm a dickhead
No, no,
anyway.
no.
You're good.
My understanding of the project was that it started out to see on an individual scale what type of manipulation can occur. The ultimate outcome was to see, could they practice that on a massive scale? And that went into a lot of cults they started in order to see if that effect could be spread out to the masses.
That's
So
what
I
I'm
don't
talking
think
about.
I'm
So,
wrong
Trip,
in my
hold up.
premise, though.
Wait, no, hold up, Trip. We actually are misunderstanding each other. That's what I've been talking about tonight. Those cults, all
Yeah,
that
y'all
shit.
are on the same page. You guys are just
Yeah,
arguing. You guys are talking about
that's
the same thing.
literally we're on the same page in this shit. I agree. MK Ultra was literally doing exactly what you said. All these groups, those cults, consider those cults the Space Kids, or perhaps the NSA's Project Preserve Destiny. So we're arguing about the same bullshit right here, man.
No, then I apologize. I thought you had said my interpretation was inaccurate, so I
No,
apologize.
no. When you said mass, I'm thinking for all the peoples and shit like that. What your second time when you came through, you sounded more. That made me understand it a little bit better. At first, I was thinking, okay, but I'm actually probably wrong. Somebody just messaged me. I was wrong, and I would listen to them. So, motherfucker, you're right, Trip.
Buddy,
All
add,
good.
add some.
Oh,
We're all here
wow.
to learn
This
and
is
share information to make each one of us stronger. I think that's the whole
No, I
point
wasn't at you,
of
Trip. It
us
just made me
communicating.
laugh because I'm sitting here trying to think, and then I get a message that says he's correct, and I'm like, shit, you're right, Trip.
No, no worries. That's the
maybe
idea that hey, steel sharpens steel. The more accurate we all are, the better off our arguments are going out into the wild. So I think it's better we work together. That's
Now it's all
100%.
right. Here, look, Trip. You don't have to make me feel better. I got another message that said you're both correct. So trying to fluff my little ass there. Fucking look,
maybe
I
if
ain't gonna
we
lie. I read so much in a day. I forget shit. That's why Fringe picks up on me. Like he was like, "No, it's this. It's this. It's not on purpose." I literally go through so much shit in one time. I can't remember half the shit, and it's not. So I appreciate it when you guys pick me up. But that was pretty funny. You're right, Trip, and that's what it was about. What the fuck was that?
so when you said that David Fravor was, he saw that thing and what it traveled into the future because it knew where he was going to go. Maybe instead that thing was just reading his brain because at that point he knew that that was where the rendezvous point was going to be. So maybe it wasn't future; it was just
Or
reading
maybe the
minds, which
AI.
we
That's
a lot of
not
people
maybe
not a
know.
it
bad
was
point.
also maybe it could have been nanites, nanobots. There's 30 rational explanations for how they could be doing that, but When you look at the Chris Mellon leak, slide 9, you have to take into consideration 3 words of great consequence: instantaneous sensor disassembly. And it wouldn't be put in that secret, it was supposed to be secret, congressional briefing based on 10 years of research of the best cases in ATIP could get from the military. I think we have to, be open minded, because it could be things we don't think. My old vet friend, you and a lot of people have a thought, and it's a reasonable thought, that the craft make gravity wells in front of them and gravity waves behind them, like in Alcubierre Drive. And I don't think that is what's happening at all, because you would tell in many cases, you would see nearby objects leaping towards that gravity well. Even if it was a very powerful gravity well extremely close to the craft, it still, it would have a powerful gravitational force in a very short range. But we would see, like when they fly over water, you would see water being sucked into the gravity well and pushed behind it. I think they're doing something a little different. They're going sideways on the y axis of space time. It's X, Y, Z, 3 dimensions, and it's space time. It's not just space, it's also time. But we're forced to travel because of entropy and the nature of the arrow of time in a forward, upward, more entropic direction on X. But if we can stop that traversement on X, or slow it down and go sideways on Y or Z, then you're literally uh, not really, it's not propulsion, it's like transportation. You can pass through walls, and we affect space time, energy, and matter at very intense levels now. Imagine a more advanced civilization mixing them like an audio mixer, smearing themselves across time, limiting their physical presence, and able to uh, mollify their sounds, their visual presence, even their physical effects. They could even walk through you, perhaps. Uh, and we should be open minded to that. And I think inside us, there are other little beings and creatures, and we live within a dynamic planet that's a systems within systems within systems within systems within life within life. There's no reason not to think there could be, and likely is, a meta creator on some bigger level. And maybe that could be one of the sources of some of the craft as well. Just throwing out ideas.
I just want to real quick say, first of all, this is an amazing conversation. I've enjoyed every second of it, and I personally have followed the host and the co-host, and I would recommend everybody in the room do the same thing, because this has been a very enlightening conversation for me. I'm going to drop down as a listener. I've monopolized a lot of time, and I appreciate you guys inviting me up.
No, dude, Trip, you're cool, man. I appreciate it if I sound like a dickhead. That's my normal voice. So,
No,
and I'm
you're all
happy.
good. I enjoyed it. You're all good.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're here. Actually, guys, he's got a good point. We spend a lot of time in these rooms. Most of us, actually, I can see Tube, Vinny, all of us listening, talking, sharing. Do me a favor. If you find something interesting about this topic, go down the thread, throw that in there, retweet it. It brings people into this space. Give your hosts a follow. Um, I should do these more. I mean, I used to do them a lot more, but I'm usually reporting on it, typing on it, blabbing about it, but I'll start trying to do these a lot more because I enjoy doing them. So, but actually, retweet
Shane
some of
was
the
shit. Shane was hosting spaces before me. You're the first space. Yeah, you and Tupa spaces were the first ones that I got on
yeah, I
here.
learned how to do spaces from Toop. I'm gonna crash though, bro. I'm tired as hell. So I
It's all
actually
good,
get up.
man.
You know what's crazy is I think I posted the other day. I was sitting there talking to a veteran that I had met, a friend of my roommates, and It was just so funny to see a woman's face light up at the mention of MK Ultra, and then the shit hit the fan. And it was like she was just. I was like, oh, I was like, why is that getting me? That shouldn't get me. I was like, that made me all smiley and shit. I was like, that shouldn't get me. That's some dark shit right there. I mentioned MK Ultra, and she just went crazy. I was like, yeah, that's the shit. That's the kind of girl I need.
Code
Well, why don't
word.
we hear from Fringe?
Yeah, go. What's up, French?
Okay, so I just want to take this back to something that Old Vet said. I posted, excuse me, something up in the nest. Old Vet is going back to what you were mentioning about what if it's them who's actually pushing for disclosure? Because, we kind of see it the other way, right? And it's just about the observer effect. And it's an excerpt either from one of Whitley Strieber's books or his interviews. And I'll just read it really quick because I'd love to hear what everybody, especially maybe Buddy and Tupa, might think about this, and Vet and Astral. The quote is, "When I asked him about the secrecy, his answer was quite revealing. He said that he had heard that a memo had been written in the early 50s, speculating in a quite unsettling way about why there had been no invasion after the surge of UFO sightings that began in 1947. The memo," he said, "theorized that obscure laws of physics might prevent them from entering our reality without first convincing us that they were real, and that official admission might be the tripwire that would enable them to come through." And this is something I think about a lot, because I'm always trying to figure out who's on what side when it comes to disclosure. It seems like there's at least maybe 3 different sides. And so I would love to hear what anybody else might think about that idea, that once we acknowledge them and once we believe they are real, that actually, because it's true, our science has kept us
I don't
in
believe
a
that.
tiny little
I
box
don't.
when it comes to physics. And I think we need to expand our thinking there. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear from you, Buddy, and anybody else who, what they think about that theory.
Before I bounce, let me jump in, buddy. I'm going to say something, then you can go, buddy. I'll say this. Lou Elizondo has a quote, if you go find it, and he's talking about that. And I often joke, too, right? It feels like whatever it is that I see is bringing me to disclosure. And doesn't mean it's a good thing. You're either a hero or you're the fucking apocalypse, right? So the more we learn, the faster they come, the more we see. I've heard that as well. And I think Lou Elizondo has a quote. So go ahead, Alien. I'm going to bounce out, guys. I'm tired.
Thanks, Shane. Later, man.
Good night, Shane. I disagree. I think that um, it. I think of it in a different way. I think there are beings and intelligences that have been here and interacted with us, and will only um, uh, do things if like certain hallmarks are reached. And we can tell from UFO history that their interactions are generally, with the exception of the uh, abduction cases, uh, there seems to be a lack of interest and only brief attempts at communication before they compute that it's too inefficient of a progression to take them away from their mission, perhaps. Um, and there's a lot of uh, stuff that just fringes on the esoteric, um, that it goes a step too far for my belief system as of now. I don't know. I've had experiences, and I think we can co-create realities with the universe, but I don't think. I don't even like to think or dwell upon the negatives or creating negatives. They don't affect me. I've never had negative experiences. Um, I've always had this kind of positive side and this shield, where I don't give life to the negative stuff. But I do believe in my experiences with interactions. Um, I think there's a great concern. It's of uh, them with our state of mind. And a lot of researchers, and even like Gary Nolan had spoke about, they seem to gravitate to certain types of people for specific interactions. I would speculate quite, you know, that we're a curated life form. And I think time will prove that.